Good morning from Britain. As we know, anyone that dares to criticise or point out the terrorism, mass terrorism, 98% in fact, of the world's terrorism and persecution on Christians, the 34,000 Christians which were killed in 2018 around the world. Yes, anyone that dares to point out a certain ideologies miscomings, shall we say, like the 1450 years of slave dealing, the wiping out of 3 or 4 civilizations, you will be called a Nazi, a racist, etc. I'd definitely include President Trump in this, of course, because he stated a certain ideology, but he seemed to hate us. Why did he hate us so much? Well, it's in their holy writings. They should hate us, and they must hate us, because we're idolaters, we're scum, we're kafir animals. I'll try not to mention the word of this ideology, the name of it. You'll have to guess it, I'm afraid, because Theresa May introduced some very undemocratic, very anti-free speech laws, where if you mention even the name of a certain ideology, you can be taken to court by your local police, or the national police. And in fact, as we know, there's several patriots, leading patriots, who oppose this ideology's warfare, mass castration, mass slavery, female genital mutilation of all those little girls. Yes, you're of course called Nazis or racists or, phobic peoples. Yes, these these extremists who plotted to kill Tommy Robinson, EDL members, Londoners, and anyone near his rally with an improvised explosive device, which was a viable device. It was packed with nails, ball bearings and what have you. Yes, they were jailed for 19 years, some years ago. They'd probably be out now planning more attacks, because they let them off. They regularly let them off extraordinary amounts of their sentence, where they would never do this for a white man like myself. If you got 10 years, you would serve 10 years or whatever it is. I think it's about half. But these people somehow mysteriously get let off to do a small proportion of their sentence. There was a case a couple of years ago, I'll just digress for a second, where a 16-year-old man called JJ in the northwest of England, in St Helens, was stabbed to death 3 times with a butcher's knife inside a curry house owned by some of these people. I believe it was over wages they owed him, and they refused to pay. And when he objected, they stabbed him to death and left him to crawl up the streets a couple hundred yards to die. This actual killer that did this, although I think there was probably several of them, this killer, the 16-year-old JJ, actually served only 2 years, 2 months sentence for murdering a 16-year-old lad. I just want to digress for a second, because I did videos about this. As you can imagine, they were classed as hate speech. Oh yes, you can't criticise these people in the UK. It doesn't matter, how many crimes they commit, how many girls they rape. You're not allowed to criticise them, because it's a perfect ideology, isn't it? This is what they learnt at college, at university. Oh yes, ideal system for mankind. Well, yeah, if you want to be slaughtered, beheaded, live your life as a slave, a dhimmi, you can. These are the culprits. Anyway, 6 guys from Birmingham, we drove down in an uninsured car. That's the only reason they caught them, because it got picked up on the cameras on the PNC, on the police cars here, and instantly it flashes up, oh, uninsured. So they pulled them over, arrested them, and the car was sat for 2 days in the car park of the police station till they got round to looking in the boots. And they got quite a surprise. Yes, they had some munitions, they had elephant gun rounds, 2 shotguns, a good few rounds of ammunition, but more importantly, they had an IED of huge firework, it was black powder or what have you, one of these notoriously powerful Chinese fireworks, packed full of shrapnel. There we go. And it was a viable device. It would have exploded, and it would have taken people's hands off, eyes out, taken many people's lives. It would have been anyone that attended the event, obviously, which usually is loads of curious people that have never heard of Tommy Robinson. I voted for him recently, and he somehow didn't win. I suspect it might have been corruption. There's the IED in the boot of the car. As we'll know, there's only really 2 patriots at the moment in the UK that are pointing out the genocide and evil of a certain ideology, and that is Tommy Robinson and that is Paul Golding. Yes, and a few of his followers, a few of his patriots. Yes, this is the woman posing with a rifle of some description, could be a real rifle or an air rifle, but they too were jailed for many years for plotting to kill Katie Hopkins or Paul Golding of Britain First. Britain First is Christian-based, very tolerant organisation in reality, although they too are called racist and xenophobes and Nazis. But I happen to know for a fact that they do have, shown on video, several, a few people belonging to different races, and I know for a fact also they do have supporters and members who are not straight. Put it that way. This is a fact. I know this for an absolute fact because I've spoken to a couple of them, and I've not got a problem with them either. As we know, most of the LGBT people, whilst I wouldn't promote this lifestyle, are productive and positive members of society who generally are not involved in paedophilic activities like the followers of this certain ideology always seem to be. There's a logical reason why the members of this ideology always attack thousands upon tens of thousands of our girls for at least 25 years, because their ideology, their so-called holy writings, tells them to. Yes, a certain prophet from the Middle East who did in fact cut people's throats in reality, yes, he tells them they're the master race and they are allowed to do what they want with the lowly, quote, lowliest of beasts idolaters, kafir, non-believers, non-followers. There she is in her hijab. These two were going to do an attack and then if they survived it, and then get married. It's some kind of romantic thing, but we were already equipped, and at this period, Paul Golding of Britain First had to sign on at a certain time every week at a police station in London. So it'd be the easiest person in the world to locate. So there's certainly, Katie Hopkins flies around the world working for newspapers and what have you, on American TV networks. So it would be pretty hard to target her, but quite easy to target Paul Golding. I just wonder if you could just get a picture up of Paul Golding. I was talking to him the other night. Yes, he's been involved in the this bestial ideology. He's been opposing it for at least 20 years, since he was about 16. So he was telling me the other night. And this is the guy on the right here, and that's one of his second in commands. And he's certainly a patriotic, loyal and Christian-based dude. He often quotes the Bible. He's read a lot of historical works. They always tamper with his picture like this, giving him big mouths. This is absolute nonsense. This is the real Paul Golding, yeah. Quite a nice guy. He's been involved in nothing else but the anti-terrorism field, shall we say, and the anti-this ideology. Strange enough, he was, despite suffering years and years of verbal abuse, threats to his life, like those two idiots, like those two London idiots, he was in fact jailed for calling four now convicted multi-orifice rapists of a white girl, a 16-year-old white girl who was a bit drunk and wanted a taxi, and these four weirdos carried her upstairs, kept her a hostage for 2 hours, possibly in fear of death with knives at her throat, and raped her terribly. I believe she was a virgin, it said in one paper, but he kept that quiet pretty quick. And this is Paul, and he was jailed for daring to swear at one of these four Muz rapists. Isn't that justice fair? Yeah, they get urine thrown at them. They get threatened with assassination, as you see, with Katie Hopkins. Here's the other guy. He had a collection of weapons, and he had a rubber dummy, which cost hundreds of pounds, which he practiced his knife work on. I hasn't got a picture of it there, but he did have one of these practice dummies which people shoot at, and it was covered in attack marks from his numerous knives. So anyway, I just wanted to show you how a certain supposedly peaceful ideology really does target anyone that dares to tell the truth of 1450 years of warfare, slave dealing. What they used to do, this ideology, certain ideology, did in fact wipe out 450 or 550 years of Christianity in the Middle East. Yep, not very peaceful, eh? Yep. all around the Middle East. I don't know how good your geography is, but if you look at the map, it starts up at the north. You've got Lebanon, then you've got Israel, and you've got like Egypt, Syria, Egypt, goes right across to Morocco and what have you, Tunisia, and all this land was Christian dominated for hundreds and hundreds of years, around about 500 years, before this certain Middle Eastern warlord, slave dealer, mass paedophile, mass killer came along. Till he reared his ugly head, we had a whole load of people living in peace in the Middle East, with a little bit of a Jewish element, and as we know, the Christians and the Jews generally, you know, keep themselves to themselves, but they generally get along. They traded, even then they traded, and of course the Jewish tribes didn't want to invade them, enslave them, and turn them into enemies, whereas these guys didn't really care, because they used to use a blitzkrieg tactic, which was later adopted by Adolf Hitler. Yeah, and also, if you care to Google Armenian massacre or Armenian genocide 1915, you can still see pictures of beheaded Christians, Turkish soldiers proudly posing with rifles beside stacks of beheaded Christian heads. Seriously, they killed 1.5 million people, and they, as their holy book says, they took great pleasure in it, you know, skinning kids and running horses over their heads when they buried them in the ground, and starving them and running them over, doing death marches into the Syrian desert, and when they get the few that survived when they got there were machine gunned to death. So not very peaceful, hey? So I'll put this on, hopefully it won't be deleted too quickly, but if you could share the word about the Armenian massacre, about the extinction of the Middle East, Christian Middle East, by this certain ideology, I'd be very grateful, because, you know, they don't want these ignoramus, Antifa, these stupid teachers, these people working as policemen. Well, I was talking to a policewoman the other day, and she was asking about these adversaries of ours, and she hadn't even heard of Antifa. Seriously. She did not know what Antifa was. This is how remote these 45, 50,000 pound a year policemen are. But she had never heard of Antifa, or the left wing, or the far left, or the far right, or Britain First, or she probably heard of Tommy Robinson, I would suspect, since she's been targeting for years. But this serving policewoman today generally had not heard of Antifa, which, as we know, has for 2 or 3 years now, has been designated a terrorist organisation in America, domestic terrorists, because of these guys following it. You know, these guys are, you know, these guys, some of these illegal immigrants, and these guys, and the far left, you know, failed Labour Party people, and the teachers, and the council workers, and the social security workers, all these people have been took in totally by this religion of peace indoctrination. I'll call it a day, guys, don't want to make this too boring, but as you see, the only 2 people in the UK at the present time which try and expose this ideology have both been falsely jailed. Say Tommy Robinson was released. They actually used, with Paul Golding of Britain First, they actually used anti-terrorist police to do a hate speech, to conduct a hate speech investigation. So it was a political prosecution. MI5 be involved, everybody. I've actually spoke to these coppers, and they really believe that, oh, Tommy Robinson is dangerous, but he's never murdered anyone. He's got 3 kids. He's never been convicted of rape or grooming. Well, he probably likes the ladies, but he's never been a paedophile, not like old Mo and tens of thousands of these people. And these rape gangs are still going on today. And I'll tell you this, not 1.5 miles from where I'm sat making this video right now, I saw Turkish Kurds and Iraqi illegals, migrants, call them what you will, refugees. I saw them attacking our girls 24 years ago. And when I told the police that these kebab men were doing this, and he'd got so many girls pregnant, and he was proud, and he was bragging about it, none of them believed me, and none of them would take a statement. And it's not much different today. Okay, see you guys. Dave signing off for now. Spread this if you can. You know, it's all the truth. It's all what I've seen. You know, I'll be happy to give you the address of that kebab shop where I saw these girls coming out of, although it's changed hands now, it's some other business now. But I am telling the truth, I've got no reason to lie. I'm a family man with kids, you know, a pretty good level of education, as you can probably tell. I've done uni, and I know the mindset and the brainwashing which these university people I've been subjected to. They've even done it to my own offspring, my old grown-up offspring. Okay, see you guys. Bye bye.